Explain to the audience what you first reported about the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy.
Well, look, I think if you pop in the tape and you look at the effort and the confusion and guys playing out of alignment, particularly on defense, you start scratching your head and saying, where has been the drop off? Because for the most part, we're seeing very similar personnel from last year. Now, look, I want to cushion that by saying they had two of their starting corners on IR. They lost Gerald McCoy early in the season. DeMarcus Lawrence has seemingly disappeared from this defensive line. You had your two Mike linebackers, Sean Lee and Leighton Vander Esch, dealing with injuries. So I'll have those allowances, but it seemed like there was frustration, particularly from Jalen Smith early in the season when he's calling out this defense and saying perhaps they could simplify the playbook. And Dan, I know you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, but when you typically see a new coaching staff come in, it's a little shocking that early to hear a player question the direction or the playbook of a new staff. It just felt disrespectful to me. So I've been digging in a little bit, and as Mike alluded, we started the season with, they want to handle things internally. And for the most part, players haven't been getting back to reporters. We haven't really been able to get a sense of, are they buying into things? But if you just look at the tape, clearly they're not. I mean, Everson Griffin a couple of weeks ago even said he had abandoned his three-point stance. So this is guys, it seems like, giving up, and Mike McCarthy had even insinuated, well, it feels like guys are improvising a little bit. They need to just buy into this defense. So he sort of told you what I was beginning to find out. But I think what was concerning was the spirit of it. In other words, this coaching staff doesn't know how to teach. They can't adjust on the fly. They're just not good. And when you hear those sort of things, that's concerning that you're 6 games in. I get the frustration. You've got 10 guys on IR. Then yesterday, Mike McCarthy tells us the backup left tackle to Tyron Smith had to go have minor surgery. Now I'm told that's going to be about 1 to 2 weeks. So that one hopefully won't be as severe. But you are down to the bottom of the barrel as it relates to this offensive line. And again, 10 guys ahead of that have been on IR starters. So there have been a lot of unique challenges for the staff. But I think when you start losing the buy-in and there's a give up, you can't overcome that. You can lose guys to injuries, but to lose this many guys this early in the season to the process, something that we knocked Jason Garrett for, and Jason never got too high, never got too low, he never got reactive, and he certainly didn't. This was another thing that stood out to me, Dan. It was a lengthy interview with them, and I appreciate Mike McCarthy answering the questions. He certainly gives us full answers, something that we didn't get necessarily from the old regime, but when he admitted to me that he simplified the playbook after the second week, when he was telling us we're not going to be a one-call defense, we believe in this personnel, I just found myself going, well, what is it? Are you guys staying the course? Are you being reactive? This is a team that's used to a coaching staff that didn't get too higher, didn't get too low. It's just we're going to play our game. But then it sounds like you are being reactive. So I was a little confused by that yesterday.
How many sources did you have? They were anonymous. Can you tell me how many?
I want to be careful, Dan, because as you know, and I don't want to specify what sides of the ball or where this frustration lies, I would say that it's permeated throughout the locker room. We'll leave it there. But I know that with the new coaching regime, it could lead to guys not being here next year, punished. We saw it in the past. Guys like Alan Hearns have gone on the record and been frustrated about not getting the ball as it related to the receiving core, and then the ball didn't come to him. So I want to be very careful. I think it's also important to distinguish there are some egos on this team. Previous coaching staffs have talked about there would be a standard of coaching that would be set by Jason Garrett. Some coaches would try to implement that, and then some of these players would, in some cases, go over the head. And it was, go to the principal's office, and they would sort of back the player, and that can be frustrating. So I think there's a couple of unique challenges that Mike McCarthy is dealing with. One, the condensed training camp. B, you're bringing in all these new coaches. You don't have the personnel you signed up for. And line item number 1, your starting quarterback. And I think it's hard to develop relationships with these guys as men virtually. And then when you don't really have time to sort of coddle these guys in your office that you typically would at a training camp or be able to take these guys to dinner, when you've just got to focus on the season. So I also want to position this as saying, maybe Mike doesn't have enough of his guys still in that locker room, and that could change. So I think it's very important to be careful about what I say here and how we could connect the dots.